Welcome to the Social Selling Show with myself, Will Barron, and the king of social selling, Daniel Disney. Daniel, how's it going, my friend?
It is all good, Will. Excited to be back for another episode. This has been so much fun doing, and today's topic is definitely one of my favorites, so excited to dig into it.
Yeah, I guess a lot of social selling, creating content and building a personal brand is based on what we're going to cover today, which is producing content within the feed itself. We're going to cover articles in another show, so I guess they're the two elements of content creation on LinkedIn. But I guess if you're not creating content and posting it on the feed, you don't really exist on LinkedIn. Is that fair to say?
No, that's really true, Will. Yeah, if you want people to follow you, if you want to give value to people, if you want to earn credibility, to build a brand, become a thought leader or someone credible and valuable in your industry, you need to be giving something, and content is the thing that you give through social media. Obviously, probably what we could start off with is the engagement piece, because kind of behind sharing content is engaging in other people's content, and that can have a huge impact in your personal brand. So, there's a lot of value in commenting on people's posts, and I'd encourage people to do maybe 3 to 5 posts on a frequent basis. That could be daily, that could be a few times a week, but just writing. And again, when I say a comment, not just something like "great post, Will,"
sure,
and that's it. Try and add something to it, add a layer, add a thought, add a contribution, because that's going to help get your name out there. So when people are logging into LinkedIn every day or every few days, they're seeing your name dotting up on all these good posts, but then they're going to start to learn from you. You're going to start sharing your knowledge through it. And I see some comments get more likes than the post itself. So done right, there is a lot of value in comments. It's just sort of a tag on bit to the whole content piece.
And is that 3 to 5 comments on other people's posts a day? Is that a number that we should be aspiring to, no matter how big we want our audience to be? And what I'm saying is there a point of diminishing returns, whether it's regards to the LinkedIn algorithm or where your posts rank, where your comments rank on the, because I don't think it's done via time. So I don't think the first comment posted kind of goes to the top of the list of the comments that are most visible, right? Is that 3 to 5 the point where we get to diminishing returns? Or if we've got time, should we make 100 comments a day, and would we see more benefit from that?
Pros and cons to both. The challenge when you start to comment on significantly more, you start to risk being seen as not busy or too immersed in LinkedIn.
Yeah, okay.
So you don't want to be too active, and hopefully no one in reality has that much time to commit to doing that. But 3 to 5 is just a healthy bit. You can do a little bit more by all means, but by no means waste hours and hours and hours putting tons of content. There is going to be minimal ROI to that type of activity. So yeah, I agree. 3 to 5 is kind of your minimum number to start seeing a positive return, and then you can increase that a little bit, but don't go too far.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And again, this is a recurring theme on this show, Daniel. I never comment on other people's posts, like ever. I never do. And I see you comment on mine. And clearly, some of my posts include content that we've collaborated on. So it makes total sense for you to comment on those. I've seen you comment on other ones as well. And there's I won't go for the name, but we've got a bit of a kind of a fan base going that comment on all of our content as well. So their names keep propping up. But I never comment on other people's posts. So what am I missing out on? Is it just that extra level, an extra layer of visibility, or are there engagement algorithms within the larger LinkedIn algorithm that reward perhaps content I post and share? Does that get a boost if I'm commenting on other people's posts?
Yes, there is a small part of it that feeds into the algorithm. The more active you are, LinkedIn is going to reward your activeness because you are essentially feeding their platform. But there's also the other side of it. And just picture a networking room, Will. Imagine you're going to this networking group on a weekly basis or even a daily basis, whatever it may be. If you're walking into that room and there's 100 people and you're sat there quietly every single time, people aren't going to have the confidence to come and talk to you. But if you start to contribute into those conversations, people are going to start to warm to you. They're going to get to know you. And then your brand, your name is going to start to have a presence within that room. So that's kind of the bigger picture. It's getting your name out there. That's the whole thing around building a brand, letting people get to know you, see you, feel comfortable with you. And they're going to start to then be attracted to you. And I don't mean attracted to you in the romantic sense. I mean,
that's fine as well. That's no problem. Sex sells, Daniel.
That's a different type of social selling. But that's all part of that building personal brand. When they feel comfortable with you, then they're going to be comfortable to talk to you. And the more people you're reaching that are feeling comfortable with you, again, that's where you get success in a branding perspective.
Yeah, for your analogy there, it's basically me standing in the corner shouting, and then when someone responds to my shout, I have a conversation with them, as opposed to actually mingling, right?
That's it. That's it.
Okay, so let's talk on and this may be covered in one episode, it may be covered in 2 episodes. We'll see how we go with this. Let's touch on posting content out from our own feed. So, am I right? Tell me if I'm wrong here. Am I right in thinking that there's? I've just copied and pasted this from LinkedIn, so hopefully I'm right. Are there 5 types of content? Is there plain text, text of image, text of presentation, text of video, and text of GIF? Are there any other content types that we need to cover in this episode that go on our feed?
I guess there's a couple of others. You've got LinkedIn polls that are relatively new, and you can add text to those to sort of flesh them out. But the poll itself is the core bit. You've got LinkedIn stories. Whilst they're not in your feed, they're only on the mobile app. They sit above the feed and technically are a form of, I call them micro content, very much associated. You could class and should class LinkedIn Lives as a form of content. Again, more newer form of content sort of only really burst out last year. So yeah, I think that then covers it. So it's a slightly bigger list than LinkedIn's 5.
Yeah, literally, I copied and pasted that from a LinkedIn blog post. So you're more of an expert on the platform than what they are, which bodes well for this show in this episode. Okay, so we'll just go through them in that order then, and we'll come on to the because for example, I don't have the mobile app on my phone, so I don't know if does everyone have access to stories, or is it being rolled out slowly?
Everyone, I believe, has access now around the world. There may be some countries that don't, but the majority do. So yeah, but you have to have the mobile app to benefit from it.
Sure. So I will download the mobile app after this episode and dive into that. And then Lives, again, I don't have access to that, but I think I probably could get access if I applied to it. It doesn't seem like it's... there's lots of people with smaller audiences than what I do who have Live. So I guess we'll cover those 2 at the end. They seem not less important, but less prevalent at the moment. But let's start with... Well, I think I'm right in saying this, because whenever I turn on LinkedIn and look at my feed, this is always the top post. And there's a few people that tend to always be the top post as well, which is interesting. Yourself, Josh Braun, Dave from Privy, whatever. Maybe I've clicked on these posts. Maybe I've engaged with you guys more than other people. But you and these other individuals seems to always have a text post at the top of my feed that gets a ton of attention. So our text posts the starting point for our content. Is that the easiest way to get engagement on LinkedIn?
I think it's a great starting point, Will. Text posts have been for the last 2 years and probably will continue to be one of the, if not maybe the strongest performing form of content. LinkedIn has always been a sort of a reading platform. I don't know if you remember when I started using it properly about 8 years ago, it all revolved around articles. Their whole thing revolved around articles. Now that kind of died out as they pushed other more consumable forms of content, but text reading type story posts definitely are at the heart of LinkedIn. So yeah, they perform really well, and we'll cover video in a minute, but I definitely think there's more results in all areas with text posts, more visibility, more engagement, more reach, and more ROI.
Now, this is a topic in its own right, and maybe we'll do this in the future because I'm fascinated by this, and this leans on kind of teaching and learning design. And there's a book I always recommend on the subject called, I think it's called Explainer, and we'll cover that perhaps in a second or in a future episode. But is there a structure to creating these text posts? Because clearly we can't just throw up some nonsense and expect to have thousands of likes on, like what I've had on a few of my posts. I know you had on a whole bunch of yours, Daniel. Is there a formula for success here? Can you share your secrets with us?
Of course, that's why I'm here, Will. That's why we've put this show together. So with text posts, a couple of top tips. Number 1, you get a 1,300 character limit. And there are 2 types of text posts in reality, short form and long form. I made up these terms, by the way. Short form is where you get like 1 sentence, maybe a couple of sentences. They're small text posts. And then long form is what I refer to when they use most, if not all of those characters that you get, the 1,300 characters. Long form text posts have ruled for the last sort of 2 years. So those long stories, people set the scene. It is a story, start, middle, and end. They set the scene. They take you through a journey. They have a nice, inspiring or debate-provoking end, and built to kind of give value, but also drive good engagement. What I'm seeing this year and 2021, this is certainly a newer trend, are the shorter posts are starting to gain traction. But I give a word of warning: you need to earn the sort of right to be able to do short posts. So I'll give you an example, Will. There is a very famous sales author. I'm going to do that thing where I tease it and then I'm not going to name names again.
Last time you did this, Daniel, I got maybe 5-6 people afterwards begging me to know who it was. So I just referred them all back to you. Said Daniel wants to share it, he can do.
That's fine. Anyway, I might do it in a one-to-one basis. Anyway, there's a very famous sales author who came onto LinkedIn, tons of books, huge name. But when they came onto LinkedIn, all they started doing was sharing short form text posts. But because they had no brand, they had no presence, and they had no audience on LinkedIn, those text posts didn't perform well. So they kind of flipped the process, put more value giving longer text posts up front, built an audience, built a brand. Then when they started going back to doing those short ones, they were getting the traction. So I feel like you need to earn that sort of place to be able to do shorter posts. You need to give more value up front before you can get away with doing those shorter posts. But those are your two types of text posts: 1,300 characters, tell a good story. And two biggest tips that I can't stress enough. Number one, you only see the first 3 lines in your feed. So those 3 lines need to stand out. That's your hook. If they're not interesting, if they're not exciting, no one's going to click and open and read the rest of it. So have a good opener. The next important one, and everyone will hopefully resonate with this, you need to have those spaces between the sentences. Remember, we are scrolling, whether it's our laptops, whether it's our phones, we are scrolling, and those spaces help make it a lot more engaging.
Can you share with us, it might have different names, I don't know if this is the correct name, I know on Facebook they call it dwell time. Can you share with us what that means and why perhaps, this might be the reason why longer posts will work before you've built that brand and that audience built in? What is dwell time on LinkedIn?
So dwell time is the amount of time a user spends essentially with that post on their screen before they scroll down or change page or whatever it may be. It's the time they are actually on your post. And obviously for any social media network, that's valuable time because that means they're obviously getting value from the content. Now, what was really exciting, people might know, and this is probably another episode for us, Will, but LinkedIn pods have been a big thing for the last few years. These sort of micro communities built within LinkedIn Messenger platforms that have rules where everyone in that group, and that could be 10, could be 50, could be hundreds of people, has to like and comment on every single user's post that they share on LinkedIn. That's quite damaging. It has many more negative impacts than positive. LinkedIn changed the algorithm last year. The reason pods worked was because it was based on initial engagement, not dwell time. So the sort of success of a post would be based on the initial likes and comments within the first sort of 5, 10, 15 minutes. LinkedIn's now switched that around and focused the algorithm on dwell time. So it's less about that initial engagement, which is the core benefit of a pod, sure. And more actually on the quality of the post. You actually have to engage the reader. You actually have to engage an audience. So it's more on the quality, which I think is a really positive thing.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. I was invited to a couple of LinkedIn pods and just refused them all. I feel like I may have missed the boat a little bit in that if they were useful a year ago, that's when people were kind of reaching out to me. But maybe we'll do another episode on LinkedIn pods just to clear up some of the myths behind them, because having not been in one, I get a lot of people... I'll keep him anonymous for the moment, but I think he's quite public about it. He's got quite a big audience, and he used LinkedIn pods he claims to grow his audience very rapidly. But now he's also selling a product on LinkedIn pods, so maybe he's slightly skewed in his opinion on some of these things. But there seems to be less black magic going on behind the scenes on LinkedIn than what there used to be maybe a few years ago, or we'll call it the proper phrase. There seems to be less black hat kind of optimization going on versus the white hat stuff that I know you and I focus on. So okay, with that then, why seemingly then, if text does well because a long text creates a lot of dwell time. It can do well with engagement because you perhaps ask a question or start a debate at the end of it. Why is text more efficient than video? See, if we put a 3-4 minute video on it, it doesn't take 3 or 4 minutes to read a 1,200 word kind of post. Why does video seemingly do less well than a text post when with the video seemingly we're creating more dwell time than what we would with just text alone?
Yeah, the thing to realize with video, Will, is video is still really new to LinkedIn. It wasn't that long ago that video in itself came on. LinkedIn Live video has only been a sort of a newer one of the last sort of 12 months. So video is still very new to the platform. And this is a historic platform that's been focused heavily around text-based posts, whether it's articles or long form text-based posts. So what I've seen is a very slow climb for video engagement. Numbers are growing, have been since the day one that video launched, and they will continue to grow. And I think LinkedIn is continuing to try and focus the algorithm on it, but I think it's going to be a transition process. It's I guess it's looking back at the history of LinkedIn and how people are using it. LinkedIn isn't YouTube, it's not Facebook. People are at work, they are usually in the office, or even if they're working at home, they are having other things to do. So I guess it's the psychology of it. They are less likely to look for video content on LinkedIn, whereas they're scrolling through their feed, looking for those quick fixes, things that they can consume on their time. It takes a lot less time to consume a text-based post than it would to sit and watch a 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute plus video. And some of the videos, they go up to 10 minutes long. That's not how people tend to use LinkedIn. I think that will change slightly, and video will grow and become, quite an equal form of content. But it's LinkedIn. It is different to YouTube.
Sure. Well, let's touch on video. If it's not so important right now, perhaps this show next year we can do a deeper dive into it. But I guess there's a few basic questions. Should we be doing 16:9 widescreen videos, or should we be doing square videos? Clearly, 16:9 is better on the desktop, but square videos perhaps are better on mobile. Which is there a preference for the LinkedIn algorithm, or from a user perspective?
There isn't. And again, this boils a lot down, and this will be a common theme in any form of content. Focus more on the quality of the post than some of those technical aspects. I mean, the first question I always get asked, Will, and I'll answer this anyway, but when should we post? What day? What time? What slot is going to get me massive engagement? And if you focus too much on the when, you're taking your focus away from the what, and that's where the key is. So it doesn't matter. I've seen people create amazing videos that get tons of engagement, and they're literally doing it on their phone whilst walking around their neighborhood or out in the woods. I've seen people do proper ones on their desktop where they create studios with digital backgrounds and stuff. And that, again, it's the quality of the video as opposed to some of those technical aspects. So focus more on what you're saying. That's where the value really lies.
Sure. And I guess the final one on video then, before we move on, do we need to subtitle the videos? Now, I don't subtitle any of our content because it's a pain in the arse. There's a cost to it. I'm not bothered about the cost, but it's just another step for our editors. It's another kind of thing to faff around with. And my personal experience is that video's not doing that well anyway versus a text post. So one of my videos might get 1,000, 2,000 views versus a text post. And I guess this is another question as well. A text post might get 5,000 views, but I would probably rather 1,000 people watch a video. That's probably more impactful than 5,000 people skim past a post. So we could touch on the engagement and what that means later on, perhaps. But back to my original question, as I ramble on here, Daniel, do we need to subtitle our videos? Is there a massive benefit in doing that?
There used to be a much bigger benefit than there is right now. And this is COVID times, people remote working. The benefit has dropped slightly. So if you go back to when everyone was in an office, the reason subtitles were really valuable is because a lot of people were watching videos on mute because they're in an office. They can't sit and listen to the volume. They can't listen to what you're saying. So subtitles had a huge value. You are right to question the reach and engagement, but actually you're right in the sense that, yes, a video is going to show a much more deeper side to you as an individual, as a human being, which is a lot more valuable, from a buyer perspective, an influence perspective than a text-based post. So yes, they were really valuable. They are still very valuable because even though, as I said, people are working from home, a lot of people will have their kids or their families or partners or friends also working. And there'll be a slight decrease in the amount of people that are watching videos on mute. But it will only be slight, and it's not going to be long, touch wood, that we're all going to be back in offices, and that's going to come back. So I would definitely recommend, looking into subtitles. I've always used Subtitle. You're right, there's a cost. It's not a huge cost. It is a bit of a time thing because you have to do your video, upload it, check through all the wording. But when you're doing videos that realistically shouldn't be any more than 1, 2, 3 minutes, if you're going to do a video, then it is worth the time and cost to get it right.
There we go. Well, Adam, who's editing this video right now, kind of a few days after we record it, is now going to be tasked to do some subtitles. So, Adam, kind of breaking the fourth wall or the third wall, whatever we call it here. Adam, kind of listening to this, we're going to do subtitles from videos now on. Okay. Now, you mentioned, and final thing on videos here, is there a specific time length of a video that performs better? I'm assuming you said 1 to 3 minutes then. Should we be aiming for 1 to 3 minutes rather than trying to max out those 10-minute videos?
Oh, 100%. 1 to 3 minutes is your optimum time. And again, it varies depending on what you're doing. You know, sometimes some nice sub 1 minute videos can be really good, bite size, easy to digest. But sometimes if you've got a good story to tell or something worthwhile, then extending it to sort of 2 or 3 minutes can work. But you need to make sure you're hooking them in. If you want them to watch to the end, which is ultimately what you want them to do,
Sure.
then you need to make sure you're engaging them. And sometimes that can be a lot more challenging when you're pushing your 2 to 3 minutes. You do risk losing them before getting to the end. So yeah, make sure you're utilizing that time wisely, but short and sweet over long and boring.
Sure. We'll come on to text images in a second, but you've teed me up to something here. So I could produce, the Salesman.org team, just from this show alone, Daniel, could produce probably like 40 clips, 1 2-minute clips an episode. And it would be me teeing up the question, 99% of the time, you giving us the answer as opposed to me giving my opinions on things. And it would probably make a relatively engaging video because it's very specific to the platform. It's very specific to my audience and your audience of mainly sales professionals, end users, as well as some sales management. So that leads me to the question. How many times should we be posting in the feed per day? Should I be posting and tagging you in 30 videos a day? It'll probably do your head in and your notifications will be like getting spammed. But is the benefit to that, or is there an ideal number of posts a day that LinkedIn wants? And then we can touch on what users want as well.
Yeah, it's a really good question, Will. And I was asked this in a slightly different framing, but it really made me chuckle. Someone said that Gary V recommends you post tons of times every day and get your name out there. And my kind of response was that was often what works for Gary V doesn't work for everyone else. So
Sure.
Gary V can be as noisy as he wants, but he has that brand, that name, that audience. You know, he is A-star celebrity status, and it kind of works for him, but it won't work for most people. LinkedIn's algorithm is optimized for 1 post a day. The moment you then start posting additional posts within 24 hours, you're going to limit the reach and benefit that first post or any previous posts had, and you're going to kind of dilute the impact it's going to have. So 1 post a day is optimum. That's what I've been doing for 6-7 years now. I've tested posting more than once a day, and yeah, there really aren't any positive ROI to come from it. So 1 a day is good. What I recommend though, if someone isn't posting content at the moment, 1 a day is quite a stressful thing to think about. So even just start with 1 a week, build it step by step, 1 a week. And then as you start to get confident, 2 a week, 3 a week, you will get more confident the more you do it, but take baby steps. Don't feel like you need to jump in the deep end and suddenly, right, this week, I've got 5 posts that I need to think about. That can be quite daunting.
Sure. And a slight sidestep here. So obviously you run and own the page, The Daily Sales, which is a massive, incredible page, well worth following for everyone who's watching and listening to the show right now. We'll link it in the show notes. Does everything that we're talking about now apply for pages as well? Because maybe some people listening to this, I know we create content for B2B sales people and sales leadership, but loads of marketing people listen to the shows that we put together. So they may be running a page as well as an individual profile. Now, does everything that we're talking about translate to pages, or do they have their own rules, and do we need to do a separate show on them in the future?
No, pages are different. You're right to bring that up. It's a good question, Will. Pages, the rules do change slightly. On the Daily Sales, I post anywhere between 4 and 6 posts a day. And I see a lot of good company pages that have built an audience and are giving a lot of value, posting anywhere, similar numbers. The key is in the value. There's no point posting 4 to 6 times a day if all you're doing is posting about your product and promoting offers and stuff like that, because it's just going to be falling on deaf ears. If you're giving value, if you're creating content that's valuable to your prospects, your customers, your audience, then yes, you can post more times on a company page because they are a brand, not a person.
Sure.
A person, it'd be like, again, going back to the networking analogy, a company might have a stand with lots of different flyers, but no one wants one person to just keep talking over everyone all day, all throughout that meeting. Contributing once is more than enough.
Cool, that makes sense. And I'll just give a bit of feedback that I've had on this. I've experimented posting multiple times a day, and this was a few years ago, to be fair. And I had multiple people, it wasn't just a one-off, say, hey, Will, love what you're doing. I'm going to have to unfollow you because you're just taking up too much of the feed. And whether the content was good, bad, however they want to describe it, they felt like they were being spammed to. Now, there's pluses and minuses of this, because someone who's really consuming the content might be the vocal minority who is complaining about the quantity, and so it's difficult to judge just on that basis. But that was definitely feedback I had when I was posting, say, 4 or 5 times a day, and I was posting a lot of images, which we'll come on to now. Basically, all I was doing was reposting images that we were posting on Instagram, quotes from people who've been on the show and famous sales authors and leaders and stuff like that. So we'll come on to images now. Should we even bother with images? The reason I ask this is, should we be just focusing on these text posts and maybe videos? Because I agree with you, videos have got to become more and more important to LinkedIn over time, because most of the internet is now, most bandwidth on the internet is video, from both websites we can talk about and websites we probably should not talk about on this video. Most bandwidth on the internet is video, so it's only going to become more and more important, and more and more people are going to start to consume it. And from a personal perspective, I search for how to solve problems, how to learn things on YouTube to get videos more than I even do on Google anymore. So, and that's personal anecdote. But with that said, is there any value to a picture at all, or should we just be focusing on, again, a text that's working right now, and then videos, which is going to be more important in the future?
Yeah, images have huge potential, Will, and they have their real place. There's a few benefits to really stand out from an image. If you want to build a personal brand, you want people to get to know you. The only way they're going to really get to know you from beyond your stories is to see you. Now, obviously, they will see you in a video, but remember, only a percentage of people like or have time to watch videos. So photos reach that other part of the audience that don't have time or don't want to sit and watch you in a video. But actually, if they can see you in a photo, and there's a few examples I can give. Let's say you want to do a book review, take a selfie holding the book, and then write your thoughts about the book. The beauty of it is you're going to get value from the post, and they're going to get to see you. The more they see you, the more they get to know you. And then as a salesperson, when you have those first conversations with prospects and customers, they feel like that relationship is so much stronger, even though you may have never spoken to them before, because they followed your journey. And the more they see you, again, the more they get to know you. So there are tons of opportunities. It could be a photo of you in the office. It could be a screenshot of a virtual team meeting that you're having. Tons of different opportunities. And again, it goes beyond just photos of you. Again, if you were to do a book review, taking a photo of the book is going to make it stand out a lot more than just writing a post about it. We are visual consumers, and LinkedIn, the audience responds very well to visual posts. So yeah, there's a lot of potential in imagery. What I will say, Will, to kind of, I guess it's kind of almost a summary to this whole episode, but what ties content together, the best strategy and advice I can give is variety. The people that last on LinkedIn, the people that are growing brands over years, not just weeks and months, are the ones that choose a variety of posts. I see a lot of people just do one type of post, and there'll be a bit of a climb, then they'll plateau, and then they often fall. People want variety. So if you go onto my feed, you'll see, I might do an image once a week. I might do a story post once or twice a week. I might do a video once a week, maybe a poll once a week, but it's variety. It helps me reach the maximum amount of people, helps me to provide the maximum sort of coverage. So yeah, that's just sort of the key tip. Images have their place and should definitely be a part of your strategy.
Yeah. So as we go through this episode, just for the audience, everyone listening now, there's a doc that both Daniel and I tend to have open, and I jot things in the document just so I don't lose track, and then I use the document to make show notes. I literally wrote, as you started transitioning then your answer into the content mix, I literally wrote content mix, ? Number per week, ? So you've answered that one perfectly for us. And this again might be an episode for another show in the future, but should we be scheduling our content? Now, I know there's tools to do this, so again, we'll come on to that another time, but should we be thinking, hey, should we have like a document with, on Monday I'm going to post this, Tuesday I'm going to post this, Wednesday I'm going to post this, or for the average salesperson I'm speaking about now, as opposed to someone who's focused on building a brand to sell books or whatever else people are selling. Should the individual salesperson, the individual sales contributor, should they be planning out their posts ahead of time so that they're not left in the lurch on a Wednesday morning when it's just snowed and they're feeling a bit miserable and I can't be bothered? Should they be planning ahead with all of this so that they don't get caught out by kind of a lack of inspiration one morning?
Let's definitely do an episode, Will, on social selling software. I think that's a great episode. We can dig into all the different types, auto scheduling included. It depends on the person, in answer to your question. Some people are far more effective posting something in the day, something that's happened, inspiration within that day. And that's the strategy I had for probably the first 4 to 5 years of being active on LinkedIn. What I found now is I'm more of the scheduling person. So I find it a lot more easier. And a big part of that might be being insanely busy, and actually that helps me kind of keep organized. And I've met a lot of people that do prefer to be more strategic in their approach and plan a week, a month, whatever it may be, with sort of themings. Some people go the full hog sometimes, and again, I'll do this if I've got, if I'm traveling or if I've got a very busy week training, or even if I'm taking a holiday, I will write and schedule content for that time that I'm not going to be able to be physically active on LinkedIn. And that can help because it takes that pressure away. Again, it depends on the person. For a lot of people probably watching this, they might be quite new to content sharing on LinkedIn. So I'd probably recommend get comfortable with it first, get confident, practice, perfect your tone, etc. Get used to writing and sharing content. But then scheduling and planning in advance can help you in 2 ways. Number one, stay organized, but also keep to consistency, because that's the biggest trap. It's easy to start putting out content, but then you quite quickly can get sucked back into what you were doing before being active on LinkedIn, and suddenly that consistency dies. Where at least if you plan or schedule ahead, if it's in your calendar, if it's in a bit of software, at least you've got consistency. And that's one of the most valuable things you can have on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Can you give us a one-liner, because we will do a full show on this, a one-liner of, does it hurt the algorithm? Does it hurt our reach if we do use automated tools to post for us, even if we're creating the content and they're pushing it out?
No, it doesn't. And I can tell you that for a fact, but we can cover that in another episode and dig into what platforms, how to use them, etc.
Perfect. Okay, so should we wrap up this episode here, Daniel, and treat this as a part 1 and record a part 2 in a minute? Because there's a few audience questions that we should get through as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've covered content quite well, and we can dig deeper in the next episode. But I think that's a comprehensive episode. I'm really keen to get into these questions.
Cool. Let's jump into the questions. And I'll pitch it for you. I've not wrote this down, so I'm going to do this off the top of my head. If you want a copy of Daniel's, I'm right in saying best-selling book, aren't I?
You are right in selling that. The £1 million LinkedIn message, best-selling on Amazon. Yeah, we're going to be giving away I'm going to be giving away a signed copy of my book to questions that we feature in these episodes. So if your question makes it onto a show, you will have a signed copy coming your way.
Amazing stuff. Well, we've had a few questions come in for this episode. You can submit your questions by either just dropping Daniel or I a message on LinkedIn, or by going to socialsellingshow.com. There is no website there right now, but there will be a website there, hopefully by the time this show airs. I might have also said that last week, so I need to get my finger out and get cracking on this. There'll be a form on there. If not a full website, there'll be a form that you can submit your questions to. Okay, so let's start off with I'll use people's first names here as opposed to both their names, just in case they're asking a question that they wouldn't want their sales manager to hear them say. So here's a question from Stuart, who is a head of sales. He asks, asking a question does encourage engagement from your connections, but are there any other tried and tested post types that you or Daniel have found to work exceptionally well? And he says, P.S. really enjoying the episode you and Daniel are creating together. Thank you and keep them coming. So I guess we've kind of covered this, but asking questions in posts is a good way to get engagement. Are there any other ways that we should be getting engagement? Any other things I guess we've not covered in this episode?
Yeah, it's a really good point, and I would adopt a 50-50 mentality. If you're always asking questions, then your audience will get bored of them. They'll get sick and tired that you're always asking for something from them. Remember, every time you ask a question, you're asking for something from them. That's not you giving, that's you taking. So what I would recommend is having a 50-50 strategy. So sometimes have posts that encourage debate, that ask for contribution, but do have posts that don't ask for anything, that just give. Just give a story, just share a story, share an insight, share some thoughts, and let it just be a pure value-giving exercise. If you're always asking, people will soon tire from that. You want to have that sort of balance. And again, goes back to the whole variety piece.
Perfect. So thank you for that, Stuart. Another one from Scott, who is a CEO and a founder. So he asks, Will Barron, I think branding yourself, making yourself a valuable resource to potential customers is a long game. I think we can all agree on this. Most companies will not give salespeople the time, and they will put pressure on them to get back onto what they think works, which he says, cold, warm prospecting, quoting, "You have to hit the numbers this month." So Scott's question is, how do we put together a hybrid game plan of what Daniel Disney recommends on social selling whilst continuing to cold and warm prospect? How do we do both at the same time when our sales managers are, I guess, on our backs to be dialing the phone?
Really good question. Something I battle every day, talking to senior leaders and trying to get them to open their eyes. Here's the reality. If we're talking about content and branding, this is an activity can be done in 15, 20 minutes a day. That is not a big amount of time.
Sure.
Most salespeople, most sales leaders can find that within their team's schedule, because what we're talking about, if I was to write a text post, I did one yesterday. I wrote a text post and it took me nowhere more than 5 to 10 minutes. That post went out. I think it's got 27,000 views within the first 24 hours, 5-10 minutes activity. Now I then spend the rest of the day, obviously I'm not sort of cold calling like most teams are, I'm training, etc. But they then have the day to make their cold calls, to send their emails, to work with prospects, clients, customers, etc. So yeah, the personal branding is less about time. It's more about doing the right activities at the right time. You can be doing those things for the first 15, 20 minutes of the day. You've got the whole rest of the day to continue doing what you were already doing. So it doesn't take a lot of time is my answer, Will. And sales leaders just need to kind of understand that. Then we look at the whole outbound piece, the messaging, things like that, which should be then embedded within the rest of the day. But that branding and content could be done at the start.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, and this isn't an age thing necessarily, but when sales managers haven't been selling for a period of time, the landscape changes, what works changes. And so, some of this might be a reflection on how talented your sales manager is. And I always go down the route of ask for forgiveness rather than permission. Just do it. If it works, no sales manager is going to tell you off for driving more revenue, easier, building a personal brand and making the sales process more effective. They'd be crazy to do that. So ask for forgiveness rather than permission and just get on with it. So thank you for that question, Scott. We've got a couple more questions here. One from Amy, who says, how do you get two people who usually scroll past videos or have auto load turned off so they can't watch your videos? I guess what Amy's asking here is, how do we get more attention from perhaps a video thumbnail or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, Will, you're definitely more of a thumbnail expert than I am, but the whole purpose of a thumbnail is to make it stand out. Another way to get video to stand out is have text post attached with it that captures their attention. Think about those first 3 lines, just draw them in, give them a reason to watch the video. Either the first 5 to 10 seconds of your video needs to draw them in, but a lot of people, as they say, they might not have the volume turned on, they might be scrolling. So if there's no text attached to it or even subtitles, why are they going to click on that video? Lure them in, have a bit of text that brings them in, and then hopefully you'll be able to get them into your video. Once they've watched it, you'll capture their attention and keep them watching.
Perfect. I'll ask you about this as well, because for each of these episodes of the Social Selling Show, our team creates a trailer. So I post the trailer with probably quite lazy from this makes context a second, with like 4 or 5 lines of text of what's coming up in the show, basically copy and pasted from the show notes. Now, when you post, Daniel, you post a long form post breaking down exactly what we talk about. You'll call out a few people. You'll perhaps ask a few questions. Now, clearly that's more effective than what I'm doing. But do you use a structure for that? Or do you make this up every time you post a piece of content? Or is there a structure? Or are you kind of like unconscious or unconsciously competent enough now after doing it so many times that it just comes out of you?
Yeah, a lot of this is autopilot for me, Will. I've been doing this consistently pretty much every day for the last 5-6 years. But yes, I mean, there's no sort of structure as such. All I'm trying to do is create an engaging bit of text that's going to help encourage people to watch the video and obviously come and watch the entire episode. So all I'm trying to do is break down the key points in as an engaging way as possible that's going to make them want to watch it, just to highlight the value that they're going to be able to get from it. That's all I'm trying to do. And that might be in a few sentences, that might be in a long text, whatever I can do to make sure they understand, what value is going to be by sort of digesting the larger form of content. So that's all it is, focusing on sharing that value.
Sure. Okay, so when this episode goes out, I promise now to myself and everyone listening, I will do a longer form post. I'll put more effort into it, and then I'll see what the reach is versus last time, and we'll see if it's any different. And perhaps we can. Do you know what would be an interesting episode? Because you just corrected me with loads of things. My profile needs updating. The way you produce content, I need to do more of this, more of that. It'd be a cool episode. Perhaps me and you to sit down off air to go through some of the things that we talked about on the show, for me to correct a bunch of stuff and then start posting more content and have that running in the background for maybe a month, 8 weeks or so. And then we could do a whole show comparing the reach I had at one point versus the reach I had at another. Do a real life case study with some of this. Would you be down for that?
Will, I am 100,000,000% down for that. Let's definitely do that. I will happily coach and support you, and I'd love to see the results we can achieve by implementing some of the stuff that we've covered in these episodes, and nothing speaks better than real results. So let's definitely do that.
I think that'd be cool. Okay, so a couple more questions here. One from Max, who is a sales development representative. Max says, Max asks even, I'd love to hear your thoughts on balancing talking about the company you work for and building your own sales brand. So I have a strong opinion about this, which I'll share in a second. But for Max here, Daniel, should we be focusing on, or what's the balance between our own personal brand and the company we work for?
Yeah, I tend to teach the 80-20 split. 80% of the content you put out should be valuable, and that should be more based around you, stories, insights, knowledge, etc. And then 20% can be about your company, your product, the service that you sell. You need to give a lot more than you take, and that percentage can, drift slightly, but the focus needs to be on value. The problem is when you talk about your company, you're selling, you're pitching, you're advertising, and people get turned off by that. You need to earn the opportunity to drive value through doing that. So I would recommend sharing more stuff. But when we say personal, that doesn't mean sharing random pictures of what you ate for dinner last night.
Sure.
It could be about stories relevant to your industry, relevant to work, but just not put in a way where you're promoting the company directly. So share professional stories, but they are about you as a person.
Sure. So I will go one step further, and by all means listen to Daniel, because he's the expert on this subject. I don't want to mention a product ever. Now, I want to talk about the industry. I want to share my expertise. I want people to come to me for advice, which then starts the sales process organically. But if I had a sales manager who's putting pressure on me to talk about, say I'd built a large audience, perhaps I'd put in a lot of effort and time into this. Maybe I'd done some of this on the company time. Maybe I'd done some of it on my own time. I don't want to be talking about products because I don't want to be so... It's obvious who you work for. It's in your LinkedIn profile. I don't want to be so affiliated with a product or service that then it could be held against me in the future. Or if the company I'm working for goes to absolute crap or something happens or there's some kind of scandal, I want to be able to separate myself from that because I own my LinkedIn profile. It's me. It's my personal brand. It's nothing to do with the organization. And I'm allowing them to leverage it to get deals done. And I don't want to be in a position in the future where I regret having been again affiliated with a brand or something. And I've had this happen. It was kind of before the days of LinkedIn, but one medical device company I worked for, a Japanese company. Anyone who's watched the media and consumed business news at the time will be aware of this Japanese company. There was a massive scandal with being involved with the Japanese mafia. The Yakuza, the CEO was British and he was kind of half wrapped up in it and he was a whistleblower. And I had customers come to me and ask me questions about this. And it was super awkward. And I felt in an awkward position and it was nothing to do with me really. I was so many rungs down on the ladder from what was going on. And now I feel like if I was in the age of LinkedIn now and this happened again, I would get absolutely hounded by people trying to ask my opinions on things, and it would not be a good position I want to be in. So I want to keep my LinkedIn profile mine, my expertise, my business expertise, and narrow down the conversations I'm having about a product or service until they come up organically or until I choose to engage someone with that specifically via message. So that's that. And we've got one final question, then we'll wrap up the show with this. This is from Robert. This was emailed over to me. He says, "Hi, Will. I just listened to your social selling podcast episode and I have a question. I work in hygiene selling services I work in hygiene services selling them to businesses. Would it be worth it for me as an employee to pay for a domain and a website for myself? And what content would I put on there?" So that's a massive question. And so we'll kind of do a quick answer to it. But Daniel, is it worth individual salespeople having their own domain name and then having their own website as well?
It is, but I would do it at the right time. Doing it, I mean, I guess there's no harm in doing it early. And I have heard some sales managers doing it for their team, buying domains for their entire team, because there are a lot of benefits from it. But the key would be build your personal brand on LinkedIn where you're able to drive traffic to it. But of course, most domains shouldn't cost you a lot of money. So it is worth doing, setting up a quick, easy website. Your marketing team might be able to do it, or you might be able to do it yourself doing one of the free platforms. But there is definitely value in doing it. If you're going to be investing in your personal brand, then absolutely. It's a tricky one. You want to be driving people to it, but you also want to be driving people to your company website and other places as well. So it has its place, but your bigger value is definitely going to be from the personal brand side of things.
Sure. My opinion on this, everybody should own theirname.com if possible. If not, because someone else has it, they need to own, for example, a designer, a web developer designer in Sheffield owns willbarron.com. So I own willbarron.net. Now, if you've not got a website, if you don't want to go down that route, just redirect it to your LinkedIn page. So when someone says, hey, I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn, just say, hey, go to Ray Barron, Will Barron, Barry Barron, whatever.com, and you're automatically redirected. You should own it from a perspective of, if I own DanielDisney.com and me and Daniel Disney fall out and I put something horrific on that page, you can... And, it's slander, and you can go to court over it, and there's opportunities to have it removed via legal proceedings. But don't leave that as an opportunity to crop up in the future. The internet's not going anywhere. If you can own your domain, it's for the sake of 11 quid a month or whatever it is to order a domain on GoDaddy, 11 quid a year even to own a domain from GoDaddy or other hosting providers, other domain providers. It's a no-brainer just to have that little bit of security. And hopefully, when someone Google searches you, even if you have it redirected to LinkedIn, your name will come up probably on LinkedIn first in the Google search results. Then it might come up for your name, which redirect to LinkedIn, and then anything else underneath it, Facebook profiles, things like that, kind of get a little bit buried, which is always good. Cool. Daniel, we're going to cover in part 2 of this episode, just to get the audience riled up to consume next week's content. We're going to cover hashtags, lives, polls, stories, whether content lives forever on LinkedIn or whether it dies after 7 hours of being on there, whether we can reuse posts, the time and date to post, maybe we'll leave articles for a second episode, viral content, and a whole lot more. So is there anything you want to add before we wrap up this episode and we record the next one that the audience will hear next week?
No, but the moral of the story, Will, for this episode is go and share content. If you want to build your brand, if you want to build your audience, if you want to generate business, start sharing content. Hopefully in this episode, we've given you a bit of confidence and some tips on how you can go and do that effectively. So yeah, excited to dig into it a bit deeper in the next episode.
Amazing stuff. Well, that was Daniel Disney, the king of social selling. My name is Will Barron, founder over at salesman.org. And with that, we'll speak to you again next week on The Social Selling Show.